So tonight we begin with a question. They will be each candidate given 2 minutes to respond. Included in this first question, the candidates will tell us a little bit about themselves and introduce themselves to you. The first question is, how do you define the problem of homelessness in our community? And be specific in describing exactly what you mean when you talk about the issue of homelessness and its impact, how it splinters out into the other areas of our city. We begin tonight with Kirkman Finlay.
Hello, I'm Kirkman Finlay, currently council member from District 4. Grew up here in Columbia, just turned 40. Can everybody hear me? Yep. Live in Columbia, have a wife, 3 children, and own several businesses, a couple of restaurants, farm, and some commercial real estate. My definition for homelessness is a little bit bigger than the concept of a home. I would describe it as an individual or a family in crisis or near crisis. Much of that is centered around the loss of a domicile, but also what it seems like is occasionally a loss of an individual identity and control of the situation. The struggles that I have seen in Columbia, both in council and individually, is a willingness to group all homelessness or all people who are defined as homeless into one specific group. Strikes me that there are 3 different groups, if you will. One group is centered on what appears to be mental illness and addiction problems. Another group seems to be centered in some ways around a lifestyle that is a little less traditional than many of us consider to be a normal home style life. And finally, there is what I call or define as transitional homelessness, people who have lost their home, apartment, lease. Quite frequently they're women, quite frequently with children, sometimes whole families that are in a near crisis situation. This last group is the group that I think we as a community have to continue to focus on most insistently and cohesively.
Mr. Johnson.
Hi, my name is Aaron Johnson. I'm a small business owner and an entrepreneur. I've started 3 businesses from scratch. I started with just a camera I bought with a student loan, and I've built that into 3 businesses. Love this city. I came here to go to USC, and now it's home. I just feel like this is a great fit and a great community. The way that I would define homelessness, I think the working language is chronic and acute homelessness, and you do have to kind of think of those as 2 completely different issues. The acute homeless people are the ones that Mr. Finlay were talking about, people that are down on their luck, often women and children. These are the people that want to be reintegrated back into society. These are the people who definitely would be benefited by the transitional facility. These are the people who we need to look at, examine, and figure out how we can help them to get back into society. Then there's the problem of chronic homelessness. And the chronic homeless are the ones who have the lifestyle decisions or often the mental illness, the drug addictions, those sorts of things. It's a much tougher issue to solve. And along with the aid portion of the solution to that answer, there's also the law enforcement portion. Because unfortunately, because not only of mental illness, but because of other decisions that are made by many chronic homelessness sufferers, you have aggressive panhandling, vandalism, that sort of thing. And that's why it's important to really examine the problems of homelessness and to respond to them with a broad spectrum of responses. There's no one solution that will solve this problem completely, but together as a community, if we can build back up our police force, if we can work on projects like this transitional center, then I think that's how we'll start to step in the right direction. As of right now, I don't feel like there's been any consolidated plan or effort, and that's something we have to change.
Mr. Benjamin.
I'm Steve Benjamin. I'm a practicing attorney here in Columbia. I'm not sure if you've been practicing much lately.
I don't know about you. It's been tough to make a living.
It's been very difficult. I've been a resident of Columbia for the better part of 23 years. I spent a couple of years in Raleigh as well. And I've been involved as a leader on the issue of homelessness in a number of different capacities over the last several years as a member of the United Way Board at one time, as a member of the Executive Committee of the Chamber of Commerce and the Midlands Business Leadership Group. Working with this community, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of our experiences. I'll have a chance to talk about my experience as a member of the Homelessness Site Selection Committee as well, and the challenges I think that this community faces in trying to develop a comprehensive approach to solving the issue of homelessness. I do believe the city needs to take a lead in solving the problem and not being drug along, and that's the way I think we've been handling the issue for the last several years. The technical definition, I think Kirkman and Aaron did a great job on the technical definition. I think what's most interesting is when I speak to the homeless people, and I speak to homeless people on a regular basis almost every day, because I want to engage folks and figure out exactly how they got to where they are. It's so important to recognize that we're not dealing with a homogeneous group of people. We're dealing with people from every different background, every faith, every race, every age group, people who, some people who choose to have a life of freedom, and that always amazes me, but most of whom do not want to be in the condition and the situation that they are in, and are looking for their leaders to try and help them solve the problem. I'm glad to be here tonight.
Mr. Morrison, before you begin, let me reiterate the question. How do you define the problem of homelessness in our community, and be specific in describing exactly what you mean when you talk about the issue of homelessness and its impact on Columbia?
Thank you. I'm Steve Morrison, father, husband, servant, leader. I've been in Columbia since 1970. Proud to be with you tonight thinking about an issue that is core to all of us. Homelessness I divide into two parts: the visible downtown homeless, which are mostly adults, and the invisible homeless that are doubled up in families that are moving from house to house. The invisible homeless have just as big a homelessness problem in terms of getting their education and medical care and working their way out of poverty as the visible homeless. Let me focus briefly on the visible homeless. The visible homeless impact our community when they are congested in one individual place and when we do nothing to take care of them as best we can. So what I would tell you is that the focus that we need to have is on identifying homeless people as they come into a comprehensive system, identifying if their need is mental health, or their need is addiction, or their need is sort of rehabilitation out of poverty into a place where they can work and live. For that latter group, people in transition, they're going to need a day place where they can have computers and counseling and the ability to get jobs. They're also going to need perhaps day care for their children. The mentally ill and the addicted need to be treated more as a health care issue, but they also need a place to be in the daytime. We don't need to be flushing everybody out at 7 in the morning and bringing everybody back at 6 at night with the kind of congestion problems that occur there. The impact of homelessness impacts the quality of education, the quality of life, and I will give you one core principle from Steve Morrison. It is more expensive to leave a person in crisis than it is to move them out of crisis.